Manchester United 0, Crystal Palace 1 in what was an infuriating and frustrating game. And in today's video, we're going to get into 5 things we learned from that game. But before we get into that, we're going to get into a report about 6 players that could be set to leave Old Trafford for free at the end of the season, and another 6 players that could be sold in what could be a brutal clear out, or as Ralph Rangnick said, what we've probably needed to do for years, which is open heart surgery. Because at the end of the day, I could make this the first thing we learned. We do need a big clear out United, because we've got a lot of players that are not good enough. So I want to quickly get into this article from One Football and discuss players that could be leaving United on a 3 at the end of the season. So there's 6 players that might leave United on a 3 at the end of the season, and they dive into these 6 players. Obviously, the first one being Tom Heaton, 1 year left on his contract. Johnny Evans, Hannibal Mejbri, who I believe will get a new contract. Martial, Lindelof, who Ten Hag sees as a valuable third centre back, so I think he'll get a new contract. And Wan-Bissaka, who again I think will extend by a year, like we will with Lindelof, and potentially a new contract. However, there were reports that he's open to selling Wan-Bissaka despite his good form. So we've got those sort of 6 players that could be leaving. I think Mejbri will stay, and I think Wan-Bissaka will stay, and I think Lindelof will at least have 1 year extended. But there's obviously 3 players that are set to be leaving. There's Christian Eriksen, that's future's in doubt. There's Maguire, that's future in doubt. McTominay's future's in doubt. But we do need to have a big clear out of the club. Sancho, McTominay, Maguire. We need to get rid of a lot of players, because at the end of the day, some of them are not good enough, and some of them will never be good enough. And maybe one of the reasons we're so bad is because actually, with all the money we spent, with all the rebuilds we've done, some players at this club are just not good enough. Which brings me into the first thing we learned from Crystal Palace game, which is that I think some players need to be held accountable. Now, I don't think singling out one player, because 2 years ago it was Maguire's fault. Maguire doesn't even play anymore now, and we're still playing bad. 2 years ago it was Ronaldo's fault, doesn't play anymore. 2 years ago it was Fred's fault, they don't play anymore. 2 years ago it's De Gea's fault, doesn't play anymore. If people are saying it's Bruno's fault or it's Rashford's fault, okay, we sell Bruno, we sell Rashford, and we'll still be rubbish. Trust me. We thought it was Maguire's fault. He wasn't good enough, but Maguire doesn't play, we're still bad. Thought it was De Gea's fault, De Gea doesn't play, we're still bad. Thought it was Ronaldo's fault, Ronaldo doesn't play, we're still bad. Fred don't play, we're still bad. I don't think we should single out players. A lot of people blaming it on Bruno and Rashford, and I think Bruno especially really unfair to be in there. Like, Rashford was really poor yesterday, really, really poor, and Rashford's not had a good start to the season, and he needs to work on his game, and I think that Rashford needs to be dropped. But I don't think if we sell Rashford and never play Rashford again, we're all of a sudden going to be a great team. We're not going to score any goals. Bruno, I think, is being very unfairly singled out as well. I think, people just have a Bruno agenda. But the players do need to take responsibility. Rashford, Bruno, of course they do. They need to take responsibility. But not just Rashford and Bruno, because it's Rashford and Bruno trending. Rashford and Bruno, Rashford and Bruno, Rashford and Bruno, Rashford and Bruno with a clear problem. Rashford and Bruno. I'm like, no, let's not just say it's Rashford and Bruno. I think every single player on that pitch needs to take some accountability. Victor Lindelof was particularly poor. He needs to take some accountability. Amrabat gave away a silly foul for the goal. He needs to take some responsibility. Unfortunately, half the squad is injured, so not really their fault, which does impact us massively. Facundo Pellistri, really good work right off the ball, fantastic off the ball, wasn't particularly good on the ball yesterday as well. Rasmus Højlund, didn't get involved in the game, not really his fault. But I think I'm fed up of singling out players. I don't think we should be singling out players. I just think that we need to realise that we need a big clear out. The players should be held accountable, but we shouldn't be singling it out, because right now everyone's saying Rashford out, Rashford out, Rashford out. We get rid of Rashford. Let's say we sell Rashford tomorrow. We're still not going to become a miles better team this season. Let's say we don't play Maguire anymore. We're still bad. And we thought, oh, okay, if we get rid of Maguire, that will solve all our issues. It doesn't. We thought if we got rid of Fred, it will solve our issues in midfield. We've still got issues in midfield. If we get rid of Rashford, we'll still have issues in attack, because Garnacho will play there, who's fantastic off the bench and was absolutely brilliant yesterday and was one of the bright sparks yesterday. But Garnacho is inconsistent. We've tried Sancho at left wing. He was inconsistent. So you've got to look at it in a rational thing and say, instead of singling out players, the players as a unit need to be held accountable, because some of them have been here under 3-4 managers and have continuously let us down. And I think the players let us down today, which was a bit of a rant. But I want to get into more of a proper analysis onto the game rather than just talking about opinion, which is I think we need to stop bypassing the midfield and build up. We're becoming too predictable, especially when we go a goal down. All of a sudden, instead of just building up play, I don't know if we're rushing things, but all of a sudden we're switching it. You'll notice Crystal Palace could defend it so well against us. You have to give Palace credit for that. But a big part of that was we were predictable. We got the ball. Mason Mount gets the ball on the left, switches the ball to the right. What he's been told to do, brilliant, but it's predictable. Switches of play, long ball over the top. Long ball over the top. We cannot get some control and really create some real chances if we keep doing long balls. Long ball over the top, maybe give it away. If we want real control of the game, we've got to build up through the midfield and get the ball to the attack and lay it onto the attack and do these patterns of play. And we're not doing that. And that's where I'm critical of Ten Hag. I'm thinking you've had this team for over a year. They look clueless in the final third. You're completely avoiding build up in the midfield. Now, I know our midfield three and none of them are good in build up, which maybe is the reason why we're avoiding build up in midfield three, because we can't do it. We don't have the midfield free to do that. And it's annoying because Amrabat could do that, but he's got to play left back because we don't have anyone at left back. But we're completely bypassing the midfield and build up. And it's, for me, it's frustrating. It's predictable. It's really limiting us. And I think, Kobbie Mainoo, Amrabat, one of them needs to get in the midfield. Even Mejbri, someone who can actually work in build up, because that's causing us problems as well. The third thing I think we learned is I think we need to learn how to play without striker. We need to learn to play with a striker. And Peter Schmeichel said this on Rasmus Højlund after the game. He said on Rasmus Højlund, he said, I would say he was involved in 90% of what was good about the Man United side. The problem is the team hasn't had a real number 9 for a long time, so it'll take time for them to get used to it. He makes the right purchases. He remains patient, but he's not served properly. And that is spot on. We are not serving Rasmus Højlund. And maybe this is because we're clueless in the final third. I see Højlund making a run. Rashford pass it to him. He's not. I see Højlund in the box. Pass it to him. Move it to him. We're not utilising Rasmus Højlund properly. Because, I like Rasmus Højlund. Obviously, he's a 20-year-old kid. We shouldn't expect loads from him. But at the same time, watch Man City play. Haaland gets chance after chance after chance, and Haaland does miss a few sitters. Højlund hasn't even got a sitter to miss. Højlund hasn't even had a chance to miss. You put Højlund in the Arsenal side and the Man City side, he'd probably have 4 goals by now. He's got 1. Do you know what I mean? Technically, I'd say he's got 2, but it was ruled out. And the one chance he did add, he almost scored. It was cleared off the line, and that was made by himself. So I think United need to realise that they've got a number 9 in Højlund and start to utilise that more. And the people that did utilise that was Diego Dalot, who's in my positives. He was really trying to drill in those crosses. And there was 3 positives. I thought Dalot was really good again. And I like how he's trying to drill in those low crosses to Højlund. I thought Mason Mount was really good again. Mason Mount made 6 tackles, I think 6 recoveries, 3 out of 3 dribbles completed, had loads of touches, loads of passes. Mason Mount was clearing everything up. He kept the midfield nice and tidy. And again, Garnacho, when he came off the bench, was brilliant. And I think that Garnacho needs to start next game. I think against Galatasaray, Garnacho deserves to start. I would start Garnacho on the left. I'd probably start Højlund up top, and then I'd start Anthony on the right ahead of the next game. That's what I would do. And a lot of people will call me crazy, but we miss Anthony. His ability to stretch the whip, his ability to be heavily involved in the game. Say what you want, but we miss Anthony. I generally think Anthony coming back in will improve United. But I do think the positives were Dalot, Garnacho, and of course Mason Mount. Those were 3 players that had a good game for me. You could say Onana as well. What was he meant to do about the goal? I see some people blaming Onana about the goal, but what was Onana meant to do? But yeah, I've been impressed with Dalot the last 2 games, same with Mason Mount. But with Manchester United inconsistency, how long is it going to last? But the 5th and final thing that we learned is that we're hopeless when losing, and this is really, really frustrating, really, really infuriating. Every single time, Bayern, Brighton, yesterday, we played really well for 20 minutes. We played some of the best football we've played all season for 20 minutes. We start thinking, Ten Hag's cooking something here. This is really good. This is really good. All of a sudden, against the run of play, we score we can see the silly goal. Against the run of play, we can see the silly goal. We deserve to be 1-0 up. We can't capitalise on it. All of a sudden, we make a silly mistake, often that set piece, often a defensive error where someone's left unmarked. The opposition go 1-0 up. As soon as the opposition go 1-0 up, the control we had of the game kind of goes. We look a bit lost. There's a mentality issue there. But then we start doing long balls over the top, switching the play. We bypass the midfield, as I've said, and we lack control. And if there's one thing I want to take away from this 5 things we learned video, it is clearly the fact that we are bypassing the midfield and build up. We are completely avoiding the midfield and build up, which is just making it harder for us to grab control of the game. That is, for me, a big problem. The midfield needs to be sorted. Do you know what I mean as well? And what I will say as well is there are issues with defensive injuries. I a lot of criticisms of Ten Hag. I'm frustrated with the play style, but I have to look at the bigger picture. Changing Ten Hag, sacking Ten Hag is not going to change anything because, one, there's no good managers available to replace him that want to come to United under Glazer ownership. Two, the players have let down 4 or 5 managers. Who's not to say they'll let down the manager that comes in after Ten Hag? 3, if you replace Ten Hag but you don't replace anyone else above him, we'll get the same issues under the next manager. And yeah, 4, injuries. It takes time. We've not seen. He's not been able to play his best team yet. So I'm not turning on Ten Hag. I will criticise him. I will criticise the players. But there's no one at fault. I want to say this now. There's people singling out Ten Hag. There's people singling out Rashford. They deserve criticism. But the people at fault are the Glazers. If you're going to blame anyone, blame the Glazers. We can criticise Rashford. We can criticise Ten Hag. We can criticise Lindelof. Lindelof was really poor yesterday. But do not single out one person, one player, one manager as the problem. The problem is at the top. Because Maguire was the problem, doesn't play, was still rubbish. You get my point. We always have a problem to single out, and then when that problem goes, there's a new problem. Or maybe the one problem is what's been consistent the last 17 years at the top. Thank you for watching. Please do hit that like button, subscribe down below if you're new, share the video. See you next time. Bye.